Picture this. Maranello, 1987. An 87-year-old man walks into Ferrari's design studio and says, "Build me the fastest car you can. No compromises, no comfort, no bullshit." That man was Enzo Ferrari, and he was about to drop the ultimate mic on the entire automotive industry. The Ferrari F40 wasn't just his final masterpiece. It was a 201-mile-per-hour middle finger to everyone who thought supercars needed cup holders and air conditioning. This is the story of the last car approved by Il Commendatore himself, and it's absolutely savage. Let's set the stage. It's 1987, and the supercar world is getting soft. Porsche's 959 has all-wheel drive and, wait for it, adjustable ride height. Lamborghini's Countach is drowning in 80s excess with spoilers bigger than most people's apartments. And what does Enzo Ferrari think about all this technology and comfort? Quote, "The F40 is a car for those who want to feel alive." Translation, screw your heated seats. Here's the thing about Enzo Ferrari in 1987. The man was 87 years old, dying, and still angrier than a wasp in a paint shaker. He'd watched his company nearly go bankrupt in the 60s. He'd seen Ford try to buy him out. He'd survived oil crises, safety regulations, and emission standards that killed every fun car on the planet. And now, in what he knew were his final years, he had one last chance to build a car that said, "This is Ferrari. Deal with it." The brief to the engineers was brutally simple. Beat the Porsche 959. Make it faster. Make it lighter. Make it look like it wants to kill you just sitting still. Oh, and do it in under 2 years because Enzo doesn't have time to wait. No pressure, right? Chief engineer Nicola Materazzi looked at this impossible task and thought, well, at least I won't get bored. So, how do you build the world's fastest production car in 1987? Simple. You cheat. And by cheat, I mean you take a racing car and stick license plates on it. The F40 started with the 288 GTO Evoluzione, a Group B rally monster that never got to race because the FIA canceled Group B after too many people discovered that 600 horsepower mid-engine cars on gravel are a terrible idea. The engine, a 2.9-liter twin-turbocharged V8 making 478 horsepower, 478. In 1987, that was more power than God gave most NASCAR engines. This wasn't some naturally aspirated Ferrari V12 that sang opera. This was a turbocharged monster that screamed profanity. And the best part? Enzo insisted it had to make at least 200 miles per hour, not 199, not 201. Exactly 200, because round numbers are dramatic. But here's where it gets properly insane. The weight target, 2,425 pounds. That's less than a Honda Civic. How do you make a supercar that light? You remove everything. And I mean everything. No sound deadening, no carpets, no door handles. You get a piece of string. No paint under the rear wing because nobody's going to see it anyway. The F40 made a Lotus Elise look like a luxury yacht. Let that marinate for a moment. Enzo Ferrari, the man who built his empire on racing, looked at modern supercars getting heavier and softer and said, "Not on my watch." While Porsche was adding computers and Mercedes was inventing ABS, Enzo was removing the ashtrays. This wasn't evolution. This was revolution through subtraction. The chassis was tubular steel, old school, simple, effective. The body, carbon fiber, Kevlar, and pure Italian rage. This was 1987 when carbon fiber was so exotic it cost more than cocaine per kilogram. Ferrari didn't care. They built the F40 like they were preparing for war. Because in Enzo's mind, they were. The war was against comfort, against technology, against anyone who thought supercars should be civilized. And the styling. Dear God. The styling. Pininfarina designer Pietro Camardella drew a shape that looked like it was doing 200 miles per hour standing still. That massive rear wing wasn't for show. It generated 710 pounds of downforce at top speed. The side scoops could swallow small children. The pop-up headlights were there because regulations demanded lights, not because Ferrari wanted them. Every line, every vent, every aggressive angle said, "I am faster than you. Accept it or get out of the way." Still with me? Good. Because the real insanity is about to start. Ferrari announced the F40 on July 21, 1987, Enzo's 89th birthday. The automotive press lost their minds. This wasn't just a new Ferrari. This was Enzo's final statement, his last masterpiece, his ultimate screw you to anyone who doubted him. And the specs? They sounded like fantasy. 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. Top speed, 201 miles per hour. Power-to-weight ratio that made Porsche engineers cry into their perfectly engineered calculators. But here's what nobody expected: the price. Ferrari set the original MSRP at $400,000 in 1987. That's roughly $1.1 million in today's money. For context, you could buy a house in California for that. A nice house, with a pool. But Ferrari didn't care about houses. They cared about building the fastest, most extreme, most uncompromising supercar ever made. And people, wealthy, insane people, lined up to pay it. The production target? 400 cars. Why 400? Because Enzo wanted one more than the 399 units required for homologation. It was bureaucratic middle finger wrapped in carbon fiber. But then something unexpected happened. Demand exploded. Ferrari ended up building 1,311 F40s between 1987 and 1992. That's not exclusivity, that's a frenzy. Millionaires were fighting over build slots like kids fighting over the last cookie. And then, Enzo Ferrari died. August 14th, 1988, just 13 months after the F40's debut. He never saw most of them built. He never saw them dominate racetracks worldwide. He never saw values skyrocket into the stratosphere. But he died knowing he'd built one final masterpiece. A car so pure, so focused, so utterly Ferrari that nothing could ever replace it. Let's talk about what it was actually like to drive an F40, because terrifying doesn't even begin to cover it. No power steering, no ABS, no traction control. Just you, 478 horsepower, and whatever prayers you remember from childhood. The turbos had lagged so severe you could make a sandwich while waiting for boost. Then, wham! All 426 pound-feet of torque hit like a freight train made of Italian fury. The interior was a joke, and Ferrari meant it as a joke. Exposed carbon fiber everywhere, plastic windows you could barely see through, seats that were basically racing buckets with the thinnest padding legally allowed. The shifter was a metal gate that required arm wrestling to operate, and the noise? Dear God, the noise. At idle, it sounded angry. At 7,000 RPM, it sounded like Armageddon had arrived and brought friends. Motor Trend tested an F40 in 1990 and wrote, "This car will kill you if you're not careful, and it will laugh while doing it." Road and Track called it the most exhilarating and terrifying car we've ever driven. Car and Driver simply wrote, "Good Lord." That's not automotive journalism. That's a trauma report. And every single one of them said it was absolutely, utterly, completely brilliant. But wait, it gets better. Or worse, depending on your perspective on safety regulations and not dying. Ferrari never crash tested the F40. They just didn't. They knew it would pass because the tubular steel chassis was basically a roll cage. But they never bothered with the actual test. When asked about it, Ferrari's response was essentially, "If you're rich enough to buy an F40, you're rich enough to hire good lawyers." That's not engineering. That's confidence bordering on arrogance. And the quality control? Non-existent. Some F40s left the factory with misaligned panels. Some had paint drips. Some had interiors assembled by what appeared to be angry toddlers. But did anyone care? No, because it was a Ferrari F40, the last car Enzo approved. You could show up with one door higher than the other, and people would still offer you their firstborn child for it. Then came the speculators. Oh, the speculators. In 1990, F40 prices hit 1.6 million. That's 4 times the original price. People were buying them and immediately flipping them for massive profits. Ferrari was so disgusted they started threatening to ban speculators from future purchases. Imagine being so rich you make Ferrari angry. That takes skill. Racing history? Absolute domination. The F40 LM won at Laguna Seca, Spa, the Nürburgring. It competed in IMSA, FIA GT, and even battled the Porsche 962 for supremacy. This wasn't a garage queen. This was a weapon. A carbon fiber, twin turbo, Italian weapon that proved Enzo's philosophy was right. Racing improves the breed, and the F40 was bred from pure racing DNA. Take a moment, breathe, because the legacy gets even more insane. The F40 changed everything. Before the F40, supercars were getting comfortable. After the F40, everyone remembered that supercars are supposed to be super. Lamborghini panicked and built the Diablo. Porsche refined the 911 Turbo into a missile. McLaren started planning the F1. The F40 didn't just beat its competitors, it scared them into building better cars. And the values today? Prepare yourself. A good F40 now costs $2.3 million. For perspective, that's more than a new LaFerrari. It's more than most houses in Beverly Hills. It's more than some people's entire net worth. The car Ferrari sold for $400,000 in 1987 is now worth 7 times that. That's not depreciation. That's appreciation that makes Wall Street jealous. But here's what makes the F40 truly special. It's the last analog supercar. No computers controlling your throttle. No stability control saving you from yourself. No electronics nannying every input. Just mechanical perfection and Italian engineering at its purest. Drive an F40 and you're connected to the road through metal, rubber, and sheer terror. It's automotive purity that will never exist again. The cultural impact was seismic. The F40 appeared in video games, movies, posters on every teenager's wall throughout the 90s. It became the poster car, the automotive equivalent of a supermodel. Kids who couldn't spell Maranello knew exactly what an F40 was. It transcended cars and became a cultural icon representing speed, exclusivity, and Italian passion. And the competitors? They all failed to capture the magic. The Porsche 959 was faster and more advanced, but boring. The Lamborghini Countach was prettier, but outdated. The Jaguar XJ220 was theoretically superior, but nobody cared, because none of them had what the F40 had, the blessing of Enzo Ferrari himself. That made it sacred. Ferrari tried to recapture the F40's magic multiple times. The F50 in 1995, too complicated. The Enzo in 2002, too digital. The LaFerrari in 2013, too hybrid. Every successor was impressive, but none were pure like the F40. Because the F40 wasn't trying to be the best at everything. It was trying to be the fastest, most focused, most uncompromising Ferrari ever. And it succeeded brilliantly. Engineering-wise, the F40 was a masterclass in focused design. Every component served a purpose. Every gram removed made it faster. Every decision prioritized performance over comfort. Nicola Materazzi and his team didn't build a car. They built a philosophy on wheels. A philosophy that said, fast is better than comfortable, light is better than strong, and racing is the only thing that matters. The turbo lag became legendary. You'd press the throttle and nothing. Then more nothing. Then you'd start to wonder if it was broken. Then, bang, all 478 horses arrived simultaneously like an avalanche made of fury. Modern supercars have eliminated turbo lag. The F40 celebrated it. Because that moment when the turbos kicked in wasn't a flaw, it was the point. It reminded you that you were driving something wild and barely tamed. Owners today describe it as the most rewarding car they've ever driven. Not the fastest, not the most comfortable, but the most rewarding. Because every drive is an event. Every shift requires precision. Every corner demands respect. The F40 doesn't coddle you. It challenges you. And when you get it right, when you nail that perfect shift, that perfect apex, it feels like you've conquered Everest. So what did Enzo Ferrari achieve with his final car? He proved that simplicity beats technology. He proved that less is more. He proved that racing heritage matters more than cup holders. He proved that the soul of a car comes from its purity, not its equipment list. The F40 wasn't just his final masterpiece. It was his final lesson to the world about what a supercar should be. The Ferrari F40 stands as the ultimate expression of automotive passion. It's proof that one man's vision, even at 89 years old, can change an industry. Enzo Ferrari looked at the future of supercars and said, "No, we're doing it my way." And he was right. The F40 isn't just the last Ferrari Enzo approved, it's the last pure Ferrari. Everything after had to compromise with safety regulations, emission standards, and customer comfort. The F40 compromised with nothing. And that is why it will forever be the greatest Ferrari ever built. If Enzo Ferrari's final masterpiece wasn't enough Italian insanity for you, next episode we're diving into the Honda NSX. The car that was so good, it had Ayrton Senna helping develop it. Imagine that, the greatest Formula One driver of all time making a Honda handle like a race car. That's not engineering, that's genius. Don't miss it. Hit that subscribe button, because this is Supercar Chronicles, where legends are born and only the fastest survive.